Kyle Klingman with Track Wrestling. We're going out to Papillion, Nebraska. We have the president, owner, founder, and the head coach of MWC Wrestling Academy. It is one of my favorite people, Zac Dominguez. How are you, Zac?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, Kyle.
Well,
I'm
there,
excited.
there's other things that we could add to that. You are a Greco-Roman guy. You've been on world teams as a coach. You have been at Nebraska Omaha as an assistant. We'll stop there. Still pains me to bring that up that they dropped. Does it still pain you?
That pains me a lot. UNO is Omaha's begging for wrestling somewhere, and we let a lot of kids out of the state because we don't have a place for them to go. And man, I just wish somebody would get it. Whether there's Creighton, there's UNO, there's Bellevue University. There's three solid institutions, and I wish one of them would pick up wrestling here in Omaha.
Do you feel like Kearney has taken the reign on that a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. They've done a good job. Dalton and I. So the head coach Dalton is one of my former wrestlers. He was my brother Esai's age, so I got to coach Dalton since he was seventh grade, eighth grade. So we have a really good relationship, and he'll call me and say, hey, I need I'm looking for these weights and this weight, and of course I'm like, hey, here's your guys, and hopefully by next year, if I'm being bragging a little bit, I think maybe half of his lineup could come from MWC. So I'd be really excited for that.
What is it you like about Greco-Roman?
Uh, you know, um, it's funny you'd ask me that question. I think that it's more of a. I like it because number one, that's what I was introduced to first when I was younger. So I didn't learn folk style right off the bat. I didn't learn freestyle. I learned Greco first, and that was all part of the way Nebraska was set up when I was super young. I lived out in western Nebraska. Football was king, right? So football actually went all the way through the fall and into the winter, and then you'd take your time off, and then you'd wrap around in the springtime, and you'd just run into freestyle Greco season. So the Greco was one of the first tournaments. I think I probably wrestled freestyle in Greco, but I just remember I had a lefty headlock, still do, and that seemed to work really good in Greco. So maybe it was the fact that I could turn left and throw left, made my life a little bit easier in Greco. So I just kept running with it, and it worked out very well for me. So I can't complain.
You went to Nebraska, and it's amazing how right down the line they have equal success in Greco and freestyle. Did it feel that way when you went there?
Yeah, actually, I would say it was definitely more Greco dominant at the time. There was Brad Varing, Matt Linlin, myself, Josh Henson, Derek Monsieur. And then the following year, that was my freshman year. And then the following year, Justin Ruiz came in. So we had what's that? A silver medal, a bronze medal, and a silver and a silver and a silver from Matt. So Greco was the predominant style at the time there. Even though we had some really great folk style and some really good freestylers, I would definitely say that at that moment in time, Greco was the king of the hill at Lincoln.
When you went to Northern Michigan, did you feel like that was a good fit? Did that help develop your Greco skills?
Yeah, absolutely. I got to meet a really great coach in Gordy Morgan, and he had a different outlook on what Greco was compared to what I had seen before, and it definitely added to the mix for me. It made it better, right? Although I always laugh whenever I see Northern Michigan guys now. They got it so good. We just had a camp down here, and Sam Jones and Austin Morrow are up there, and I just got to talking to them about what it's like for them up there, what's life like. They said, "Oh, it's awesome." When we got there was just 8 of us, and we had a closet for a wrestling room. So we actually have a really good. They have a really good scenario there, and I almost wish I was 20 years younger because I think I could still be wrestling at that point, and maybe think about being out there full time, which a lot of those guys are. They really enjoy that outside life. They enjoy the town itself has grown. But when in '99, when we went up there as the first class, because Brian Medlin was here as well for the camp, and we were poking fun at the other two guys because they got it easy, and we had to do all the hard work for them to make sure that they got that. So that's what was enjoyable for us.
We asked this question to Jim Grunwald, who was there as a coach and, of course, a Greco-Roman legend in the United States as well. But there's been that conversation piece. Does Northern Michigan hurt Greco wrestling? What's your response to that?
I don't think Northern Michigan hurts Greco wrestling. I think what it does is it gives an outlet, but I wish there was more outlets, right? I it if it's done properly, which it's being done properly now, I think that it's producing some of our developmental, and when I look at developmental age, obviously there's some senior level guys up there, but they're still in college, right? So they're 23 and younger. They're doing their job, and the job is, and Coach Pizik's doing it right now, is to bolster the number 2 and number 3 guys. So when it's time and they move out of that, when they move out of Northern Michigan, they'll be the number 1 guy. They head to the Olympic Training Center. Maybe they head into the WCAP because they're graduated, or the All-Marine team, things of that nature. But he's definitely doing what he's supposed to be doing, and I think that's your junior age group, your U23 age group, is what he should be dominating in, and I believe that they are. So I don't think he's hindering. I wish you could have more, right? I wish you could have more. I wish there could be 3 Northern Michigans somewhere in the United States. There could be 3 of them, because then it really wouldn't, we wouldn't have any, this wouldn't be a conversation, right? So it would be even better.
How do you get those D1 guys to stick around and go Greco?
You know what? So Coach Mayab always says, how do you kill a dragon? And you kill it when it's a baby, because you can't do it when it's older. So that's our hook with Grit a little bit, is we want to get them when they're young. So the idea of U15s and UWW cadets has been a really good thing for Greco, in my opinion. I can get a 15-year-old, 14-year-old, or 13-year-old when they're still at home, and I can give them the love. I can take them overseas to win a world title, when they're 13, 14, or 15, which our U15 success was amazing last year, or I don't know, 2 years ago, but that we had world champions in Greco, and we had them in freestyle. I think we actually had more medals in Greco than we did in freestyle, and I'm sure I'm wrong, but I'm gonna believe that I'm right, at U15s. And it went phenomenal. And one of those kids 2 of them actually happened to be mine. Tyler Antoniak and Joel Adams came home with a gold and a bronze. And their love for Greco is just spurred now, right? So if I can catch them when they're younger via U15s, and then get them into cadets, and then keep them on that path, maybe that high school graduate will be willing to have that conversation with that college coach and say, hey, I really want to come to your institution, but I really, really want to wrestle Greco as well. And I think maybe that's what needs to happen more. Just catch a couple more high-level kids when they're younger, and then plug them into the Greco world, and then put them in a place to have a good conversation with a coach, right? You say, hey, listen, I love folk style, but I'm really good at Greco too. But I like the way you coach. I want to come with you. I want to come work with you, but I really want to still continue my Greco path. Obviously, within the boundaries of what that head coach can do. But I think any college coach, if I told them I could automatically double their Olympic medals, would obviously all of them say yes. At that point, then I would say, why don't you have Greco? Because you have 2 ways to earn medals now. And then women's freestyle, obviously, to go into that too, so you could actually triple it. However you want to open up your RTC.
You're in a unique lane now that there is good youth wrestling clubs. You're one of those clubs that's really producing quite a bit of talent. What is it about the youth wrestling lane that you like?
Well, so I'll go back to 10 years ago when UNO got dropped. I wasn't able to go with Coach Denny. He had asked me to come down with him to Maryville, but I had just started doing a really good job at my real job, and I couldn't leave. My wife had a really good job here, so I got to thinking, I'm not done coaching, right? And I'm not a senior level coach yet. I have to put some work in. So why not build it from the ground up? And I think that what you're seeing is a lot of great wrestlers, great coaches are getting back into that club level, because they are building from the ground up. And when you build something from the ground up, it's going to be, well, the idea would be better, right? Especially if you've had a good experience in wrestling and your talent level as a coach and or athlete was super high. You're only going to build it better because you've seen what's better. So you understand that. So what I think is happening is you got your, the Pinnacles of the world with Brandon Paulson, the Askrens with or Ben Askren and Max up there at AWA, Izzy Martinez in Illinois, tons of slews of Jody Strittmatter out at Young Guns, myself here at MWC, Terry Packett, LOG. Most of us have all had some sort of college career and or coaching career at college, and some sort of high level wrestling. And you put all 3 of those together, and then you start teaching the 6-year-old, hey, it's okay for you to do it wrong now because you're doing it your way. We're just going to make your way better, and we can see that, and we can develop that young wrestler in a longer time frame, as opposed to sticking them in as a guy going, hey, I really want to coach your kid, bring him over here, and I only got 1 year left with him, change everything, and then send him off. I find it very appealing to just be the first one to teach a 2-on-1 or an underhook or a high crotch or a double or front headlock, whatever it may be. And a kid goes, hey, I really like doing that, coach. Can you show me another way to do it? 100% I can, right? And that goes for all my coaches. They're all very young. My coaches are younger. All my coaches are younger than me, but they all do a very good job. And I've had the luckiness to have coached most of them that are coaching with me when they were younger. So it definitely helps the transitions and the development. We're all on the same page.
What goes into development? I know wins and losses are important, and there is a nice conversation going on right now about how you develop a kid when wins and losses become important. What's your philosophy on that?
So, I'm going to say something that'll probably kick my own butt for saying it later, but wrestling is one of the greatest bait and switch sports there is out there. So you want to get them in and make sure they're having fun and they're enjoying the process of just, learning and being maybe in a hot room every once in a while, or maybe not eating all the cupcakes, but just instead of 3, they have 1. And to be honest with you, when they're 6th grade and under, I really like to take my time. So I've got my time frames, I guess you could say, worked out, at least what I think is good. When they're 6th grade and under and they're doing well, yeah, I'll take them to some tournaments, and hopefully they do very well. And of course, so to me, the worst tournament, not because you didn't get a medal, but it's because you couldn't, not scoring a point and going 0-2 is probably like the bottom for me. So then I got to go back and rethink what we're doing with that young wrestler. But if you can go to a tournament, go 3-2, it's your first time out, and it's a big tournament, and you score lots of points in your losses, to me, that's probably sometimes better than getting a medal, because you're using your techniques, you're taking a loss, and you're coming back, and you're wrestling well. But so 6th grade and under, I like to take my time. They go to a lot of local things. They don't really travel too far. We don't beat them up too bad. And then I'll go back a year here, 5th through 8th grade. If that 5th grader is really accelerating as he gets into 6th, 7th, and 8th, I'll move him up to some bigger tournaments, get him out there, start putting a foot on the line. But I don't believe development will ever come through folk style. I know it sounds really bad to say that, because it's business. Folk style is a business, and it's hard to stick a kid in the room where it's a lot of business going on. Like I always tell people, you don't bring children to the CEO meeting, right? I mean, that's what folk style seems to be like to me. But you can take a lot of kids to freestyle Greco tournaments, and you can let them have fun. They can go get beat up. They can throw somebody over their head. They can get thrown on their head. And then they become enthralled with the sport. Like, hey, man, this freestyle Greco is pretty good. And I will tell you, what I find is when you have a lot of kids that are wrestling freestyle Greco, it's usually the ones that like wrestling anyway. So it presents itself to be more fun. Right? You got a bunch of kids that are already having fun, and now you're like, hey, I'm going to go have fun with these guys. Wrestling becomes fun on its own, right? You don't have to try too hard, and the kids are hanging out, they're doing their thing, right? And freestyle Greco is a lot like other sports, like, in my opinion, baseball, football, basketball, because you got to travel to get to these tournaments. So this now becomes really fun. You get your hotel time, your mom, dad take you get that cool wrestling shirt at the tournament that you went to, even though you might have went 1-2, but you got a story, right? It's a good story. And then you get double the chances, right? You go to a folk style tournament, it's going to be tough to get into another bracket. You get beat up in Greco, okay, you go wrestle freestyle, you get one back, right? It's a good deal. And then once they hit that UWW cadet age or late U15 age, then I start plugging them into high level tournaments, right? I always think Fargo is a great grassroots experience. I think that everybody, if they can, they should go. UWW cadets and U15s has now separated itself out as a trials in a good way, so that you can always have a step up. So you're like, hey, you went to Fargo last year, let's try trials this year. Let's see how you can do. And then as my kids, if they do get really, really, really good, I always tell them it's my job to make sure that they lose a couple more times before they go to college, so that they can learn a little bit more, and then be ready to go once they step foot into that college realm.
Jay Robinson, 1972 Greco-Roman Olympian, legendary coach at Minnesota, says that wrestling cannot be fun. Winning is fun. What do you think about his comment about wrestling cannot be fun?
I think that in 1972, I believe that time frame in life would lead you to that point. 2020 COVID, wrestling better be fun, because you got to find a lot of ways to do it. So you're not winning now anymore. There is no tournaments. There is no winning. So I would say that time frame would definitely. I'm not saying he's wrong by any means. Obviously, he's Jay Robinson, so I would never shake a finger at him and say, what are you thinking? But I think the time and when he did that, and when he said that was very true. But I think that 2020 COVID, we don't have a lot of tournaments, so we can't have fun winning. So we have to have fun wrestling. We've evolved, right? We're in a place where we've evolved. We're a place where we're being better as coaches. I know that when I shut the club down for a couple months, I had to come up with ways to keep kids involved, and that was me hunting down CrossFit people, say, hey, you used to wrestle. Can you make me a couple workouts? I'll buy them and I can get them off to my kids with a wrestling emphasis, right? So they got to do other things, right? And then I got to found a couple people in the nutrition world, and I started getting together with them and putting together diets. Just like, hey, we're not really expending too much energy. Here's a good, better, best options. And then watching videos of great wrestlers, right? So I think that wrestling made itself fun since 1972. So what I would say is wrestling is fun. Winning is the byproduct. If you're having fun, winning or losing is going to be a thing anyway, right? So you can even win in your losses. Like, hey, man, I lost to a really good wrestler, and I scored 10 points. In your brain, that's a win. And I'm all for that, right? So, and I'm not saying that I don't push kids hard or give them the business if they do something that they shouldn't have done. Like, hey, why did you do that? Where were you at in this match? How did this transition of elements happen for you? We always get on it, but I said, if we don't learn now, we won't learn later. So we have to learn every time we take that loss. We have to learn something. And it would be plain as simple as, I thought it was better. I went a different way than what you said. But I go, even at that point, I enjoy it when a kid says that, because I'm like, okay, how'd that work out? And they're like, you know what? It didn't work out. Okay, fine. We've learned something. We can move forward. So again, Jay Robinson is not wrong, but I do believe the times have changed, and that's how wrestling is, or why wrestling has evolved so well. Because the Ben Askrens of the world and the Brandon Paulsons and the Zac Dominguez's, they all learned from working hard and then going, man, if I'm going to sustain a kid from in my brain, when I look at a 5-year-old, I look at him and I go, are you going to be an Olympian? Obviously, I wouldn't say that out loud to him. And I got to put that path in my brain and go, okay, how am I going to get you to that point? Right? And it can't be all right. It can't be all dark dungeons and weight cutting and all that jazz. But it also can't be lollipops and big wheels. So you gotta find that happy medium. And again, wrestling has to be fun. If my goal is to take a 5-year-old and track him all the way to the Olympics, right? And I think that's every club coach's goal. I don't think that's, and of course, I think there's other things that go along with it, but I would say that if you're an Olympic champion, the odds of you being an NCAA champion are pretty high. The odds of you being a state champion are pretty high at that point, so on and so forth, right? So they're all byproducts of a long-term vision, but you just gotta stick to the mission and stick to the vision. However, you see fit as a head coach, right? And some of us do it well, some of us do it better, some of us do it great. So we just you keep growing up.
How crucial is it in your development process as a coach for youth wrestling to have a standalone facility?
So right now it's very important. Number two, so again, back to the time, COVID is going to force a lot of things out of high schools. But in general, having my own facility is actually the only way I think it should be done. I think that's good for high schools, but I would love to see. This is a crazy thought. So a system that is used in that if your club is in a high school, right, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just usually going to be your very, very developmental age groups, right? You get in, mom and dad brought you, you want to try wrestling, and that's super awesome. So you're going to go to that local club. That's amazing. And they do a great job, because what I would really like to do is work with all those coaches, because I love coaching coaches, and then go, hey, if you guys see a guy that really wants to get into wrestling, you move him up. At that point, I would also like to move that local coach into the club with him, so you can develop that coach, right? And then maybe he moves into the next, like he goes back to his high school after the fact, and with that boy, right? It's a nice little circle that outlines itself. But I feel like wrestling doesn't lend itself to legacy very much, because a good coach will go through with a bunch of kids, and then once those kids are done, he's done or she's done, right? Depending on what it is. But what if I could take that coach and keep that wheel spinning, and he gets to go through with all the good kids that he keeps producing, right? I just give him the means to do it. And then he goes, that wheel keeps turning. And that could be for girls and boys, because the way girls sports is growing now, it's, unbelievable. So the amount of women coaches that need to start getting up there is going to increase tenfold, in my opinion. But having a standalone leads me to get to practice whenever I want, how I want to do it, when I want to do it, work with the parents that want to work with me, right? Get all those things in place. So if we need to have a Saturday workout, I don't have to schedule around a basketball game or some sort of other sport going on at school. Or if I want to run camp, I can have, nobody has to tell me what, or I don't have to tell anybody when I'm going to do it. I just go ahead and do it. It's like being self-employed, right? If you want to be your own boss, you got to do your own thing, but you got to do it right. And just knowing that I don't ever have to shut my doors unless I want to is a very powerful feeling, because I can always have wrestling. I can always go to practice, which I'm a mat room wrestler, or mat rat in the room. I love being in practice. Matter of fact, my kids are really mad at me because I forced them into like 10 days off, and they're super like, hey, can we go back today? Can we go back today? No. So it's good.
How do we continue to be inclusive for gender and ethnic diversity?
That's always going to, wrestling is one of those few sports that it is naturally inclusive, but it does need to be harnessed a little bit better. How do we, I think I'm working with a guy here in town who is, we want to start like I don't want to call it an outreach program, but a scenario where we can find the dollars for a young man to come in that can't afford something, right? It's putting together like just that idea that we can maybe still help without doing a lot of legwork on my end, because I'm super busy and everybody's super busy, but we do know that we have to be inclusive, right? We have to find a way to get it done. We also need to, I think personally, and this goes back to coaches, it's not that I don't want really awesome coaches, but I want really awesome coaches to spend time with the little guys, the young kids, and then they grow with that group, right? So don't get me wrong, it's super easy to coach people that are really good at anything, right? I mean, I could go coach basketball if I'm just sitting on a pro bench. It's easy. I got the water bottle and I can draw some X's and O's. That's super easy to do, and I think that's what sometimes people think coaching is. But coaching is, on your knees, down and dirty, getting on the mat. Hey, taking a little foot and fits the size of your hand, moving it and go, hey, this is where it goes when you make this step, or putting a hand right where it's supposed to be, or getting a 6-year-old to stop chasing the butterflies that are inside the room. To be inclusive, we have to have better coaches at the young age. And then I think what happens is that attracts more, right? If I have a professional coach, which we have several of them that we've named before here in this time frame, it's going to attract more people. It's going to attract the kids that are going, hey man, that coach is really good. And he's going to stay here. He's not going to leave and go to a high school or leave and go to a college, because that's what the natural progression of a coach is going to do. And I guess so. Basically, I would say we need to professionalize the youth coaches. And when I say that, I don't mean like in money. I mean in attitude, knowledge, how they deal with kids. And I think USA Wrestling is doing a good job with our Safe Sport, our certifications with Mike Clayton, and things of that nature. I think that we're starting to see that coming, where I think parents are seeing that too. Like, hey man, that that coach is gold certified, and he's really good, and he's not leaving. Maybe this is where we should go, and I can tell more people about it, right? So turning our youth coaches into more professionals, I think would help the sport be more inclusive, to pull in everybody, men, women, culture, it doesn't matter. That's at least where my brain goes.
Do you think singlets deter some cultures from not participating?
The obvious answer should be yes, right? I mean, I don't want to sound mean by any means, but to be honest with you, wrestling is going to be wrestling forever. I would ask the same thing of gymnastics. I don't think that leotards are going to deter, because I've seen gymnastics practices. I've seen the little boys and little girls that are in there, and you know what? They're putting on leotard just like everybody else, or they're putting on it's actually called something else in gymnastics, because men wear a sling. It's not a singlet, but it's really close to the same word in men's gymnastics. And it doesn't stop them from, you've never actually heard that conversation, or at least I never have, in those, my daughters do gymnastics, so that's the only reason why I'm bringing it up. Same thing for swimming, right? I mean, any individual sport's always going to be a little bit tougher because it's you out there alone, right? You know, if we flip the script and say, well, what if football players, a whole team of football players was wearing a singlet out there, everybody would think that was the norm, and we were wearing all the clothes in a wrestling practice or match. It might, of course, that's probably a really weird scenario, but my point is, I don't think singlets are, because if you have a professional coach, a young coach, he's going to help your parent and help your kids understand why singlets are important to the sport, where they come from, why they're there, and how we got to this point. And, you know, they've gotten better. I mean, I remember growing up in the 80s, looking at the singlets that we have versus now. I mean, those were skimpy singlets compared to what we have now, which I really do like the singlets we have now. But I remember transitioning, so I've gotten to go through a lot of time frame where in the 80s you had the skimpy singlet, and then in the 90s it was a little bit more, but then you had the jammer singlet that was long with John Smith that went down to your knees. Like, man, what's that all about? Well, that's crazy, but it's still low cut. And then you got into a little bit of a higher cut, and then high schools got into higher cut, you know, and it just eventually evolved into now, which it does cover more of the body. I mean, I could definitely foresee it being a problem if it was still the singlets we were wearing in the 80s, for sure. But I mean, we've grown that as much as we can, I think, to a point where it's good. And we're even given the option now, right? So if you can wear the shorts and the tight shirt, or the tight shorts and tight shirt, I forget what that's called, that surfers wear it, but they have a specific name for it. I just can't remember it, but those are all good too. And I don't have a problem with any of those either. But I know that in the United States, because we only do folk style, we assume everybody else in the world does folk style. So why doesn't everybody wear what we want them to wear? Well, we're not in charge of that. UWW's in charge of that. And I do not foresee them changing the singlet ever. So that also is another, other problem we have to deal with.
How much do you like social media?
I love social media, especially because I'm getting better at it. It's fun as long as it's done in the right way, right? I'm not necessarily the guy that's posting like videos all the time or anything like that, but I love pictures. So in my downtime, I've started learning how to shoot camera, shoot stills. Me and my cohort at the club, he's our treasurer. He's working on videos. So that's been our COVID project, right? So I shoot a lot of stills, I shoot a lot of pictures, and I have a lot of fun doing it. And I tell you what, I would have never guessed that pictures of a guy wrestling, like, 'cause if I catch one of my wrestlers doing something cool and I get a good picture of it, they are so excited to have a picture, right? So for me, my social media is more of them posting the pictures they get of themselves than me, vlogging or doing, lots of things of that nature. But I enjoy it because I think you can get yourself out there. You can talk about the good things you've done. You can also, talk about the uphill battles everybody has, and you can communicate with people, right? I mean, I can now get across country just via phone call more than I can, 10 years ago. So, yeah, I like social media, right? I always talk to the wrestlers. My biggest bragging point is I'm lucky enough to hit 5,000 friends on Facebook, so I can't have any more. So they always get like, oh, I'm not going to be your friend. I just can't be your friend anymore. So it's fun. But yeah, like I said, shooting stills, talking about wrestling, and just showing what we're doing as a sport is what's most important to me. Whether it's I'm overseas with a world team, and we get a medal, and I want to brag about that all day long, right? I want to brag about Adam Kuhn getting a silver medal, and I got to fly home with him on the same plane. He let me touch his medal. Like, this is so awesome, right? So those are the things that I want to use social media for, to help them understand that what we do as a sport is very, very important to just the development of kids, the development of good human beings, and development of just good habits in life.
As of the recording of this interview a year ago, we were in Sofia, Bulgaria together at the Cadet World Championships. Do you enjoy the international travel?
I love the international travel. I tell you what, you always think you're a good coach, but then you watch other coaches when you're overseas. To me, this is why I want to go coach, but I'm also always watching and videoing slightly with my phone. Like, that's an awesome drill. I want to learn how to do that. So I'll spend as much time as I'm supposed to do. Well, and as much as always more than I'm supposed to when whatever I'm told to do, I'm going to do. But if I have downtime, I'm going to watch other coaches. I'm going to watch other athletes. I'm watching their interactions. I think their development scheme over there for their U15s, cadets, and juniors is just amazing. In Bulgaria or in Sofia, when we watched Nazarian's son, he got a bronze, and you would have thought he would have won the Olympic title. And then, of course, I think it was like 6 months later, he's European champion at 55 kilos. So that means, like, he went from UWW cadets to the European championships and was third at Cadet Worlds, which obviously is tough. Because the guy that beat him just beat him up good. I think he tech-faulted him, and then he went on to win a medal. I think it was a Kazakhstanian young boy. But then Nazarian, he won the European championships as a cadet. Or maybe he was a first-year junior, maybe because we're in the next year. So maybe he turned into a junior. But that's just being able to say that I watched that kid and then watched him do it again. I was like, wow, that's just amazing. And then the fact that he's 16 and he's so strong and he can pick a kid up from the ground all the way up to the top of his head and then do it again and again and again, where, here in the United States, your 16-year-olds are going to do a really good job of shooting and good hands, good feet. But the strength of a wrestler over there is so much more than the strength of a wrestler here. The awareness of position is so much higher. Not that we're not gaining ground by any means, but that to me is what I'm over there and what I'm watching. It's just, you can see it. So I've done a junior world team, a cadet world team, and a senior world team, and you can just see the growth, right? I've seen so in 2015 I was with juniors. In 2018 I saw those juniors at seniors, and they were just amazing. That I was like, wow, look how much he's grown, or how strong this guy's gotten, or just holy buckets, wow. That that you could see in 3 years what they're doing, and in the freestyle Greco world is what we are trying to do. It takes us 10 years. So maybe it's just their delivery and their systems are so much cleaner, and they don't have to deal with folk style. Not that I'm saying folk style is bad. I'm just saying they don't have to make that hurdle as well. But I love overseas traveling. It's always tough because it's traveling, but being able to sit and watch and learn from some of those magnificent coaches is just absolutely the nails for me. That's what I wanted to go do.